What you are about to hear is not a folktale or work of fiction. Beginning in November of 2011, it is a documented story compiled from over 800 pages of official police reports, child services, case files, and psychiatric evaluations. There are forces in this world that defy every law of science and reason we hold dear. This is the story of a family who came face to face with one of them. Stay with us until the very end, because what was witnessed by police officers, nurses, and social workers is more terrifying than any ghost story ever told.
Welcome to the Scary Stories channel with Mr. Murph.
Our story begins with a mother, Latoya Ammons, and a simple human desire, a safe place to raise her children. In the winter of 2011, she, her 3 kids, and her own mother, Rosa Campbell, moved into a small, unassuming rental house on Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. It was just a house, white paint, a small porch, a place for a new beginning. For a short while, it was exactly that. A home. The first sign that something was wrong wasn't a ghostly whisper or a slamming door. It was flies. Hundreds of them. Big, black horse flies that swarmed the screened-in porch, clinging to the mesh in the dead of winter when everything else was frozen and barren. They would appear from nowhere and vanish just as quickly. It was unnatural, an unsettling omen that the family tried their best to ignore. Then came the sounds. In the quiet of the night, when the house should have been asleep, Rosa would hear footsteps. The slow, heavy tread of someone walking in the basement directly below her bedroom. She'd lie frozen in her bed, listening to the methodical pacing, back and forth, back and forth. There was never anyone there. Soon after, they started hearing them upstairs, the distinct sound of creaking floorboards in the empty rooms above, the soft thud of boots on a wooden floor, followed by an unnerving silence. The feeling came next. A deep, penetrating cold that would settle in a room without warning. You could be watching television, wrapped in a blanket, and suddenly feel a pocket of icy air move past you, raising the hairs on your arms. It felt like a presence, a silent, unseen observer in the corners of their home. Latoya and her family were devoutly religious. They prayed, they burned sage, they told themselves it was an old house settling, their minds playing tricks on them. But the house was not settling. It was waking up. One evening, Rosa was in the living room with her grandchildren when she saw it. Out of the corner of her eye, a shape moving from the kitchen. She turned her head and saw him, a tall, shadowy figure of a man, pacing silently across the living room floor before vanishing into thin air. Her heart seized in her chest. It was the same presence she'd heard in the basement, but now it had a form. The children began to see him too. They'd whisper about a monster man with glowing eyes who would watch them from the ends of dark hallways. The activity began to center on the children. Their personalities would shift in an instant. One moment, they'd be playing happily. The next, their eyes would glaze over, and they'd speak in deep, guttural voices that didn't belong to them. They'd have violent, inexplicable convulsions, their small bodies thrashing as if in agony. Latoya watched in horror as her 7-year-old son sat in a closet, talking to another boy only he could see. A boy who was telling him what it felt like to be killed. The the true breaking point, the moment that shattered any illusion of a rational explanation, came late one night. LaToya was gathered in a room with her mother and some friends, praying for deliverance. Her 12-year-old daughter was in the next room, supposedly asleep. Suddenly, the house fell silent. An oppressive, heavy quiet. LaToya went to check on her daughter. She opened the bedroom door and found the room icy cold. Her daughter wasn't in her bed. She was floating above it, motionless, unconscious, levitating several feet in the air, as if held up by invisible hands. LaToya let out a scream of pure, primal terror. At the sound, the girl's body convulsed violently and dropped hard onto the mattress. That was it. This was not a ghost. This was something else. This was an infestation. Desperate, LaToya turned to anyone who would listen. Doctors, church leaders, and finally, the authorities. The Department of Child Services, or DCS, opened a case. Their initial assessment was what you might expect. They believed LaToya Ammons was mentally ill, coaching her children to fabricate stories of the supernatural. It was a clear-cut case of delusion or abuse. Case manager Valerie Washington was assigned to investigate. She would later state under oath that she was a complete skeptic. Her job was to protect children, and she believed she was protecting them from their own mother. But when she visited the house on Carolina Street, her certainty began to crack. During her interviews, lights would flicker, window blinds would sway in sealed rooms, and audio recorders would malfunction, capturing only static and strange, deep voices that weren't present during the recording. The family was eventually taken to a local hospital for psychiatric evaluation. It was here, in the cold, sterile environment of a medical facility, far from the influence of the house, that the most terrifying and well-documented event would occur. On April 19, 2012, LaToya's 9-year-old son was in a small family meeting room with his grandmother, a hospital nurse, and the DCS case manager, Valerie Washington. The boy began to growl, a low, inhuman sound that rumbled in his chest. His eyes rolled back in his head, and a sickening, evil grin spread across his face. He locked eyes with his grandmother in a voice that was deep and ancient, a voice that was not his own. He said, "It's time to die." He then turned, and with an unnatural calm, he walked straight up the wall. He didn't run. He didn't climb. He placed one foot on the wall, then the other, and simply walked backward, perpendicular to the floor, until his feet were on the ceiling. He then did a backward flip in midair, landing perfectly on his feet in front of the 3 petrified adults. The nurse and the case manager stared, mouths agape, their minds unable to process what they had just witnessed. Valerie Washington, the skeptic, would later write in her official DCS report that she was terrified. The nurse fled the room and refused to return. This wasn't a delusion. This was real. The official reports changed everything. Police Captain Charles Austin of the Gary Police Department, a 36-year veteran of the force, read the files and decided to visit the house himself, convinced it was all a hoax. What he experienced there turned him into a believer. His police car radio malfunctioned with unintelligible whispers. A photograph he took of the basement stairs revealed a cloudy, white figure he hadn't seen with his own eyes. The garage door, he noted in his report, opened and its own. The Catholic Church was finally convinced. Father Michael Maginot, a local priest, was authorized to perform a series of exorcisms on LaToya and the home. He described the house as a portal. During the rites, LaToya would convulse as if being shocked by electricity. He placed a crucifix against her head, and her body would shake violently. He claimed to have identified over 200 demons possessing the family, their names whispered by the children during their trances. But the house fought back. During one exorcism, a light in the bathroom flickered and went out. When the priest went to investigate, he found a thick, clear, oily substance dripping from the blinds, a liquid with no discernible source. The evil in that house was ancient and powerful, and it did not want to leave. Finally, LaToya Ammons knew they couldn't win. They could exorcise the demons from her family, but they couldn't exorcise them from the land, from the very foundation of that small white house on Carolina Street. In 2012, they fled. They left behind everything they owned, their clothes, their furniture, their memories, and never looked back. Once they were gone, the intense paranormal activity that had plagued them for months simply stopped. The house was later purchased by Zach Bagans, a paranormal investigator who had it demolished in 2016. He claimed the evil was so profound, so embedded in the structure itself, that tearing it down was the only way to ensure another family never suffered the same fate. But it leaves one final, chilling question. When you demolish a portal, do you close it? Or do you just break it wide open, releasing whatever was inside? The official police and DCS reports on the Ammons case are public record, a modern testament to a medieval horror. But files can't convey the terror of a mother watching her child float, or the shock of a seasoned police officer witnessing the impossible. If this story has left you with a chill, a feeling that there are things in the dark we are not meant to understand, share your own thoughts or unexplained experiences in the comments. And if you feel the need to explore these dark truths with us, subscribe to our community. Because the reality we uncover next might be even harder to believe.